Continuing along, we've already done C, D, and E. Let's take a look at F. Now, again, in F, we do not have the first issue of having a fraction. However, we do have a root, but notice the number on the type of root it is. It is an odd root, not an even root. So, remember, our second rule or worry was about even roots. So, this is an odd root. We're not even going to worry about it. So that means I have no issues to worry about. So my domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. And that's it. Let's take a look at this next one. On this next one, G, we do not have a fraction. We do have a root, and yes, it is a square root, so it is an even root. So we are worried that whatever is inside the root, if it's an even root, needs to be greater than or equal to 0. So the inside is this 5 minus x. So that inside part, the 5 minus x, needs to be the 5 minus x. Needs to be greater than or equal to 0. So again, let's solve this like we learned in the last chapter. So we'll go through this one a little bit more slowly. We will subtract the 5 from both sides, which will leave us with a negative x is greater than or equal to negative 5. Then we'll divide both sides by a negative 1. Which will give me the x's now. Remember, we divided by a negative. Dividing by a negative flips the direction of your inequality. So it was a greater than or equal to. Now it's going to flip to being a less than or equal to. We also divided two negatives. So those will turn into a positive. And 5 divided by 1 is just the number 5. So let's see what the graph of this guy would look like. So here's our number line. Here's our 5. Notice it's a less than, so it's going to point to the left this time. And the equal to means it will be a bracket. So let's see what this means. It means our domain this time is starting out with the arrow down at the far end, which means it's going to be starting out with a negative infinity and working its way up to 5 where there's a bracket. Remember, infinities will always have that parentheses, so our domain for G is negative infinity to 5 where I have a bracket because of the equal to. Let's take a look at H. On H, we have the reverse. We have the problem of a fraction, and it does have a denominator with an x on it, or a bottom with an x on it, so we are worried about something making that denominator equal to 0, because that's what we do not want. We do not want this bottom or denominator equaling 0. Well, the bottom or denominator is x plus 3. The bottom or denominator is x plus 3, and we don't want that equaling 0. Well, we can solve that the same way you would a normal equation, though. We'll subtract 3 from both sides, and what this gives us is that x can be anything we want, but x can't be equal to negative 3, because the negative 3 will make the denominator 0, which you can see that if you were to take the negative 3 and plug it back in, you'd get negative 3 plus 3, which would give you 0 on the denominator. So let's draw a little picture of this and what this means. So here's our number line. Here's negative 3. And what this would look like is anything before negative 3 is fine. Anything after negative 3. But negative 3 is not okay, so I'm going to leave this gaping hole at negative 3 because I can't use it. That's the value that will make my denominator 0. So I have to break this up into two pieces. I'd start out with my left-hand side here, which written out, reading it from left to right, would be negative infinity to negative 3. And you'd have to use parentheses on the infinity automatically. But because of this open circle here, you'd also have to use a parentheses at negative 3 because we don't want to include it. It's what makes the denominator equal to 0. That is not what we want. Okay, that's the left-hand side. You still have to do the right-hand side of the graph. The right-hand side of the graph would pick up at negative 3. Again, though, you can't include negative 3 because it makes your denominator 0, and there's that big gaping circle there. Comma, we are going to go all the way to positive infinity, though, and that will have to have a parentheses because it's an infinity symbol. Now, the problem here is I've got two pieces. I've got the pink side and I've got the purple side. How do I put it together? We're going to learn a new symbol. When you've got pieces you want to put together, you're going to put a U in the middle, and it's called a union symbol. And I always think of the U or union symbol as like a uniter. It brings two pieces together. So this is our final answer for our domain for this problem on H. Is what this domain says is anything from negative infinity up to negative 3. The parentheses means not including negative 3. The union means put this together with another piece that does include negative 3 but continues all the way off to positive infinity. Notice the only thing that this means it's leaving out is the value negative 3. Everything else is okay.